A lone human ship appears on the edge of alien space, its presence an unspoken threat. The alien council dismisses it with arrogance until the ship makes its move, forcing them to rethink their assumptions of human fragility. The vastness of space lay silent. Unseen, unknown forces shifted in the dark between stars, and yet, for a brief moment, the galaxy held its breath. In the conference room of the Galactic Dominion, a group of alien leaders sat, their eyes flickering between data, screens that detailed the movements of a human ship. Another human vessel. One of the alien dignitaries chuckled, his voice dripping with disdain. It's only one. Do we even need to waste our time? The room filled with laughter, but there was a tremor in the air, an odd sense of unease. The human vessel, a simple ship by all known standards, hovered just at the edge of their reach. It had not fired, nor had it displayed any aggressive intent, yet it was there, impossibly close. The humans are insignificant. Another alien leader spoke up, his voice condescending. One ship cannot possibly threaten us. Let them approach. We will obliterate it without a second thought. An air of superiority filled the room, and they all shared a knowing glance. The vast, incomprehensible power of the Dominion was enough to shatter anything in its path, even the most reckless human. Ships. The captain of the human vessel was either naive or too foolish to realize what he was up against. But then a signal blinked on the main console. An urgent voice cut through the laughter. They're accelerating, heading directly toward us. The council froze. The laughter died in an instant. Impossible, one of the leaders whispered, standing up from their seat. Their arrogance had faltered, their eyes now locked on the readout. The human ship moved forward relentlessly without hesitation, as though it were utterly unaware of the disparity in power. Its engines flared a simple burst of energy, a stark contrast to the alien technology it faced. "Why is it coming closer?" another leader asked, their voice now edged with confusion. "This doesn't make sense. Are they truly this confident?" The air was thick with uncertainty. They had assumed this was an easy victory, a quick and insignificant confrontation. But what if the humans were smarter, more dangerous than they realized? What if this simple ship carried an unpredictable weapon, a trick they had not anticipated? "Prepare for immediate engagement," one of the leaders finally commanded, his voice steely with the remnants of their earlier confidence. But before they could issue the order, the unimaginable happened. The human ship didn't fire. Instead, a beam of light shot from it, an impossibly dense streak of energy that slammed directly into the heart of the alien fleet. The Council's eyes widened as the energy pulse traveled faster than they could react. There was no sound, no warning, just a flash of light, and then silence. The alien fleet, vast as it was left in the dark, unable to comprehend the sudden shift in power. They hadn't fired a single shot, and yet they had already lost. The human ship, simple in its appearance, had done what no one expected. It had left them speechless, frozen in their own panic. They thought it was mercy. It wasn't. Fear was palpable. One by one, the alien leaders looked at each other, the weight of their underestimation pressing down on them. They had dismissed Earth. They had thought it insignificant, but now it was too late to retreat, and that was before Earth even responded. The silence grew deeper. The alien fleet scrambles in the wake of the human ship's unprecedented move, unsure of what just happened. Tensions rise as they try to understand the nature of the threat, and a crucial mistake is made, one that will push the galactic powers into a conflict they never expected. The shockwave from the human ship's unexpected attack reverberated through the alien fleet, rippling in waves of silent panic. The Dominion's command ship, the largest and most powerful vessel in the fleet, drifted motionless in the blackness of space, its once proud exterior marred by scorch marks from the inexplicable energy pulse. For a moment, Everything stood still. No one spoke, no one moved. The council members, still seated in the conference room, had their eyes fixed on the main screen, blinking in disbelief. The readouts no longer made sense. The alien ships, each far more advanced in technology than anything humanity had produced, had simply faltered. It wasn't supposed to be like this. One human ship, a simple vessel by all standards, had thrown their entire fleet into disarray. A lone officer, pale and trembling, stood in front of the console, his voice breaking through the quiet. "Commander, we've lost contact with the rear vessels. Their systems are down. All of them." He paused, then added, "Sir, the core of the fleet. It's shutting down." The room felt as though it were suffocating. The alien leaders exchanged nervous glances, a flicker of fear creeping across their features. For the first time in centuries, they had encountered something truly unknown. "What a kind of weapon could cause this?" a prominent military officer of the Dominion demanded, his voice tinged with both curiosity and frustration. "We need to know what we're facing," another councillor stated as he leaned forward, his eyes narrowed in thought. "There's something more than simple technology at play here. Their ship, what did it do? We need answers now." The alien officer at the controls swallowed hard, his fingers typing rapidly. The data he was receiving was incomplete, corrupted, fragments of a report that made no sense. It was a beam, unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's as if their ship bypassed all our defenses in one moment, sending the energy directly to our core systems. The commander of the fleet, a battle-hardened alien with silver scales, leaned back in his chair, his jaw clenched. He had seen many battles, crushed countless races that dared to challenge the Dominion, but this was something else entirely. His mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle, but the more he thought, the more uncertain he became. "It's almost as if they knew exactly where to strike," he muttered. "No weapons fire, no targeting systems, just a single direct hit to our most vulnerable points." The alien council grew increasingly uneasy. Their vaunted empire, built on centuries of conquest, was now exposed, vulnerable to a species they had long dismissed as primitive, barely worth their attention. But now their pride had been shattered, and the consequences of that miscalculation were quickly becoming apparent. "Where is the human ship now?" the fleet commander asked, his voice grim. The officer looked up, still visibly shaken. "It's still approaching. It's moving at a slow pace, but it's heading straight for us. And there's no sign of them slowing." "Down!" A deep silence fell over the room, broken only by the soft hum of machinery. The human ship was an enigma, something entirely outside the aliens' understanding. Every protocol they had followed for centuries, every plan, every strategy, had failed in the face of this unexpected attack. "What should we do?" a younger officer asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do?" the fleet commander's voice was cold. "We wait, and we watch." Meanwhile, aboard the human ship, Captain Emily Rourke stood in the command center, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. Her crew moved silently around her, each of them still processing what had just occurred. The explosion of energy, beautiful in its simplicity, terrifying in its power, had brought their enemies to their knees. But Emily knew better than to celebrate. She understood the nature of war all too well. The real battle was just beginning. "Captain," a voice broke through her thoughts. Lieutenant Harrison, her first officer, approached with a data tablet in hand. "The alien fleet is regrouping. They're forming a defensive perimeter. They're preparing for retaliation." Emily exhaled slowly. She had anticipated this. The Dominion wouldn't let one attack go unanswered. "What's their strength? What are they deploying?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp. "We're still analyzing their fleet composition, but from the scans, It looks like they're amassing the majority of their warships near their flagship. It's their most powerful vessel. They're trying to isolate us." Emily nodded. "They'll make their move soon, but we won't be there to meet them." She turned to face her crew. "Prepare to jump. Let's give them something to chase." The crew sprang into action, each of them moving with a sense of urgency. But Emily felt a sinking feeling in her chest. She had to move quickly, but she couldn't shake the feeling that their simple, calculated strike had just provoked a much larger conflict. Back in the Dominion's command center, the mood had shifted. The once confident counselors now struggled to maintain control, their emotions teetering between rage and fear. The alien fleet had been stunned, and they knew it. But they also knew one truth: if the humans were allowed to leave this encounter alive, their reputation would be permanently damaged. The Dominion could not afford to let this moment pass. The fleet commander leaned forward, his mind racing. "We must teach them a lesson. If we let them escape now, it will embolden them. The galaxy must know that humanity cannot be allowed to challenge us." The council murmured in agreement, their voices rising in anger and determination. The commanders, eyes narrowed, "Send a message to the rest of the fleet. We engage them fully. The humans are not to be underestimated." But as they prepared to launch their assault, the same officer who had first alerted them to the human ship's approach raised his hand. His face was pale. "Sir, the human ship has just vanished. It disappeared into a fold in space. We lost contact." The commander froze. He looked at the monitor, but the human ship was gone, simply wiped off the radar as though it had never been there. "Impossible," he muttered, his voice shaking. "They can't just disappear like that." For a moment there was silence. The fleet commander stared at the empty space on the monitor, a cold shiver running down his spine. They hadn't just been beaten by humans, they'd been outsmarted. This wasn't over. This was only the beginning. "We'll find them," the commander hissed, his eyes narrowing into slits, "and when we do, we will make them pay." As the alien fleet dispersed, a new, chilling realization set in. The human ship had just vanished into the depths of space, but it had left a mark that would not be easily erased. The Dominion had underestimated humanity, and in doing so had unleashed a force far more dangerous than they could have imagined. They had been silent, but now humanity's silence would speak louder than any battle cry, and the galaxy would soon learn that underestimating Earth was a mistake that would come with consequences far greater than they could ever anticipate. The stars, once silent, now seemed to hum with the promise of a coming storm. The Dominion fleet had regrouped. Their ships moved in silent formation, their weapons primed, their minds racing with uncertainty. The feeling of vulnerability lingered in the cold metal corridors of the command ship. It had been days since the human ship had vanished into the folds of space, and yet the tension had not dissipated. If anything, it had grown stronger, more suffocating. The alien commanders sat in their war room, their eyes glued to the various tactical screens that filled the chamber. The display was quiet, as if mocking them. No signs of the human ship. No signals, no trace. They had expected a retaliation, a counterattack, but the silence was deafening. "Where are they?" one of the counselors demanded, his voice tight with frustration. His hands trembled as he clutched the edge of the table. "How could they just disappear like that? This isn't possible." The fleet commander, still seated at the head of the table, let out a deep sigh. His mind raced, piecing together the events of the last few days. They had sent scouts, they had combed through every inch of space around them, but the human ship was gone. The energy pulse that had crippled their fleet, the simplicity of the attack, it had been calculated, deliberate. The humans were far more dangerous than they had anticipated. "We've miscalculated," the fleet commander finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We underestimated them. This is no longer a simple engagement. They are more than we thought, and if we don't act soon, they will make us regret this mistake." Another counselor, a younger one with sharp eyes, turned to the commander. "Do you believe this was a fluke, that they somehow got lucky?" The commander looked up, his gaze cold. "I do not believe in luck. We are dealing with a force that knows exactly what it's doing. They've been planning this. They've been preparing." The room fell silent. The implications of his words were clear. The human ship's disappearance wasn't just a tactical retreat. It was a calculated move, part of a larger strategy that they could not yet see. As the days passed, the Dominion's fleet began to grow more anxious. The unknowns, the uncertainty of facing an enemy that operated outside their understanding, was like a slow poison seeping into their minds. The fear wasn't just of the humans, it was of their own ignorance. For the first time in centuries, they were uncertain. Meanwhile, aboard the human ship, Captain Emily Rourke stood before a bank of monitors, her hands folded tightly behind her back. The mission had shifted. They had no time to celebrate their small victory. The real fight had just begun. "Captain," Lieutenant Harrison said, his voice tight with the same sense of urgency that had gripped them all, "we've picked up a signal. It's faint, but it's there." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Had the alien fleet found them? She turned quickly to face her first officer. "Where's it coming from?" Harrison's fingers danced over the control panel. "It's not one of their ships. It's something else. It's a frequency we've never encountered before. It's coming from the heart of their fleet." Emily stared at the screen, the pulse of the alien signal pulsing in front of her. She'd heard rumors, whispers among the higher-ups of the Dominions. Use of secretive and unconventional technologies. Could they be trying something new? Had they developed something that could track them, even across folds of space? "Get me a full analysis of the signal," Emily commanded. "Now!" Harrison nodded and began working, his fingers moving furiously over the console. "It's not a direct signal, it's encrypted, broken into fragments, but there's something we can use. I think we can reverse engineer it." Emily's mind raced. This wasn't just a signal, it was a trap. The Dominion had something they weren't telling anyone. A tool to find them, to hunt them. They knew they were out there, somewhere in the black, and they were preparing to track them down. "Captain," Harrison interrupted her thoughts. His voice hesitant. "The signal. It's repeating. It's like a distress signal of some kind, but it's alien. They're trying to bait us." "Bait?" Emily's eyes narrowed. "They want us to make a move. They want us to slip up." Her instincts kicked in. The silence of the fleet, the sudden disappearance, it all made sense now. The Dominion had been waiting, watching, and now they were testing the waters. They wanted the humans to come to them. They wanted them to make the first mistake, and they had a plan to catch them in it. "We're not falling for their games," Emily muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "Set course for the signal, but we're not just going in blindly. They've lured us in before. We need to be prepared." Back on the command ship, the alien fleet commander watched as his officers scrambled to interpret the data they had gathered. The humans had become an obsession, a dangerous one. They had just disappeared, but the Dominion was not prepared to let them go without a fight. "The human ship is out there," the commander said, his voice sharp. "We must act before they find a way to use our weaknesses against us. This time, we will not let them slip through our fingers." His words echoed through the war room, a promise of retaliation. But even as he spoke, his thoughts turned dark. Something was wrong. They had never faced an enemy like this. There was no understanding, no predictability to how humanity fought. They had shown their hand, but there was more to them than anyone had ever expected. The fleet commander gripped the edge of the table, his fingers tightening around the cold metal. "Prepare for the next phase of the operation," he ordered. "We will not let this go unanswered. We'll make them understand what it means to challenge the Dominion." As the Dominion prepared for the next phase of their strategy and the human ship advanced towards the signal, a dark realization crept into the minds of both parties. The calm before the storm was over. What was coming next was a reckoning, one that would reshape the fate of the galaxy. The battle for supremacy had begun in earnest, and neither side would walk away unchanged. The silence of space had given way to the hum of conflict, and soon the galaxy would feel its weight. The silence was deafening. The human ship, now in full view of the Dominion fleet, hung in the vastness of space like a mere speck in the cosmos. But there was a certain power to its stillness. It was a reminder to the Dominion that the humans had never truly gone away. They were the storm on the horizon, and now they were ready to bring the tempest. Captain Emily Rourke stood at the bridge, watching the fleet through the viewscreen. The time had come. The Dominion was ready for their move, and she was ready for hers. The signal they had followed, the trap laid out by the Dominion, had led them to this moment. The fleet, thinking they had them cornered, had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated the human capacity for strategy and determination. "Captain," Lieutenant Harrison's voice broke through her thoughts, "we're locked into position. Ready to execute the final maneuver." Emily nodded. "Do it. Let's make sure they understand what they've started." The command to fire echoed through the ship, and in an instant the human vessel unleashed the final card they had kept hidden, a weapon they had designed with the sole purpose of exploiting the Dominion's greatest weakness, an EMP pulse that could disable their most advanced technologies. The entire fleet went dark in an instant. A deadly silence fell over the battlefield. The Dominion, now completely powerless, was at the mercy of the human ship. The crew of the command ship watched as the human ship slowly moved into the heart of their fleet. Now, Emily whispered, she had won. The galaxy had watched and learned. The Dominion's arrogance, their belief that they were invincible, had been shattered by the simplest of tactics. And as the human ship drifted away, untouched and unscathed, the final words echoed in the cold of space. They thought it was mercy. It wasn't. The stars were quiet, but now their silence carried a new weight, a reminder that the galaxy's balance had irrevocably shifted.